everyone. I'm even shorter than Aaron. So I will say I met Aaron because a board member of ours, Aaron, was organizing this building because he's being overcharged for his rent. So this is a problem that affects everyone. So my name is Noelle. I'm the executive director of HeatSeek, and as our name implies, we're concerned with solving the heating crisis in New York City. And the way that we do that is we build simple, easy-to-use, web-connected temperature sensors. So essentially a thermometer connected to the internet to help tenants in the wintertime when their landlords don't provide heat. So just quick show of hands, has anyone in the room ever had the heat go out? Yeah, so maybe more than half. It's a really widespread problem. It is, last year there were 200,000 heating complaints made to 311. It's consistently the number one or the number two complaint that comes into 311 during the winter months. And so what that means is in New York City we have a law that says during heat season, which is October 1st to May 31st, your landlord is obligated to provide heat in your apartment. If it's less than 55 degrees outside, it's got to be above 68 degrees in your apartment during the day. And at night, if it's less than 40 degrees outside, it's got to be above 55 degrees in your apartment. Super widespread problem. We just checked the 311 open data, the complaints around heat, mapped them. This is by zip code. It's actually a year old now. But as you can see, there are a couple patterns. Way up in the Bronx and up in Harlem, and down in sort of deep in Brooklyn, Flatbush, Crown Heights, Bed-Stuy, we're in Bushwick as well. So this is a problem that disproportionately affects low-income New Yorkers and New Yorkers of color. And it's really bad for your health, surprisingly, to live in an apartment that doesn't have adequate heat. So this is Malika. She's been working with HeatSeek for 2 winters now, still trying to get her heat turned back on. Her landlord often does not provide heat in the apartment. When he doesn't, she has to use her oven or her stove to heat the apartment. This is her 3-year-old daughter now. She's probably 3 now. And when the heat goes out in their apartment, her daughter gets sick. Malika has to take off work in order to take care of her daughter, which means that she's actually at risk of losing her job. Which then, of course, if she loses her job, maybe she will lose her apartment as well. And it's surprisingly difficult to get your heat turned back on if you are suffering from this issue. So you can call 311, you can make a complaint, and what they will do is turn around and call your landlord and notify your landlord that someone's made a complaint that the heat is out, which is great if your landlord just doesn't know that the boiler is broken. But if your landlord is doing this on purpose, if your landlord is withholding heat to try to get you to leave your rent-stabilized apartment because for exactly the reasons that Aaron was talking about, he wants to raise the rent on that apartment, he has an incentive to get you out. And what he can do is, because he gets that phone call that says, someone just made a complaint, he now knows, okay, an HPD inspector is going to come out to the building sometime in the next 72 hours. All I have to do is pump up the heat for 72 hours and then turn it back down. And so tenants get caught in this cycle where, for months or years even, they can't get a violation placed. And so HPD's enforcement mechanism for trying to catch landlords when they're not providing heat doesn't work for all tenants, especially if their landlords are somewhat sophisticated. So we set out to create a better way to prove lack of heat that doesn't just rely on HPD inspectors physically visiting a building and taking a temperature reading. So what we do is we build temperature sensors. I've got some examples of them in my bag. I can show them to you later. So it's a web-connected temperature sensor, which means that it's a small sensor. It takes a temperature reading once an hour, sends that data to a centralized hub in the building that's connected to the internet, and that hub sends the data to our servers where we log the data, we can analyze it, the tenants have access to their data, their lawyers have access to the data, their community-based organizations that they're working with have access to that data, and they can download heat logs, which I'll show in a second, that you can actually use in housing court. So, like I mentioned, you can install these temperature sensors throughout a building, and you have one centralized hub, which we've actually built, we designed it. It includes a 3G modem. So we didn't want access to Wi-Fi to be, or we didn't want tenants to have access to Wi-Fi in order to be able to benefit from the HeatSeek sensors, because we know that many of the tenants that we work with may not have Wi-Fi in their buildings. So we actually, even though it's more expensive to build it this way, we built the temperature sensors to include their own internet connection. So this is what a tenant sees when they log in. Their community-based organization, tenant organizer, and their lawyer can also log in. They get an account. And so they can view consistent temperature readings every hour over time, which is what you need to show that the heat is below the legal limit, or to show a pattern of abuse from your landlord. And this is the temperature log that you can download from our website that collects your data. So it shows the indoor temperature, the outdoor temperature, the time of day, and whether or not your building's in violation. And so organizers can very quickly look at a couple of these heat logs and see, get a picture of what's going on in the building. And so I just want to take a step back for a second and mention that, the reason that we build these temperature sensors is because heat is it's difficult to prove, right? Like if your landlord is not fixing a leak or not fixing mold in your apartment, you can take a photo of it. You can take that photo with you to housing court, and you can prove that your building is in terrible condition. It's not possible to take a photo of the lack of heat. And so traditionally, this has been an issue that's really difficult for tenants to prove. And so often it just gets left out of housing court settlements altogether because it's too difficult to prove. So we are a small team. There are 3 of us right now. We've been around for about 2 years. And what we, sort of our deployment strategy, rather than saying, let's just build 1 billion sensors, we'll sell them, anyone who wants them can buy them. We said, that's not going to let us target the lower income folks that we think or we know are disproportionately affected by this issue. And so what we did instead, we also said, look, we're not community organizers. We don't know every single neighborhood in New York City. We're not going to try to do that because there are community organizers out there already who are doing fantastic work. They have relationships with the tenants in these neighborhoods. They know sort of the neighborhood history. Why try to reinvent the wheel by going out and organizing ourselves? Let's partner with these organizations. They can tell us which buildings they're working in that are having heating issues. We can then go install sensors with tenants that they already know in those buildings and provide the tenants and the organizers, and later on in the game, their lawyers, with that data so that they can use that data to advocate for themselves. So this past winter, we ran a pilot program in 56 buildings throughout New York City. And as you can see, if you remember back to that cold map, the buildings that we were in tracked pretty well to the neighborhoods where this is a big issue. So we were in 56 buildings. We're still analyzing the results of that pilot program. As you can imagine, housing court is not a quick process. And so while 12 court cases were initiated already, representing about 20 of the buildings that we've been in, not all of them have been settled yet. We've had 8 favorable settlements, and we see some that are still ongoing. And when I say favorable settlement, I mean either the tenant got a rent abatement, the building got a rent abatement sort of building-wide, or the landlord wrote into, or there was a component of the settlement that said, I am the landlord, I pledge to provide heat adequately in the future, according to the law. And so what our data then enables a lawyer to do is to continue to track the heat in that building, so that if the landlord isn't providing heat at the minimum level post-settlement, they can actually bring them back on contempt. Oh, and then in 4 buildings, we were actually able to help tenants avoid housing court altogether. So once they let their landlord know that the temperature in the building was being monitored by these outside sensors, all of a sudden they had the best winter they've ever had. So I kind of want to leave you with this idea that we have, which is, we're kind of trying to model a new kind of tech disruption, one that doesn't involve kind of coming into a neighborhood and bulldozing all that's come before, but rather kind of builds upon, supports, and amplifies the work of the community organizations that we partner with, who've been doing this for so much longer than we have. And so we build with the needs of the communities that we're trying to serve in mind, and also with the impact that we're trying to achieve in mind, rather than a profit motive. And I'll leave you with, we're in it for the long haul. We build tech tools that support the great organizing work that is already taking place. And if you work for a community organization, we would love to partner with you. Please get in touch.